Well, hello, and a very, very warm welcome to this special webinar on one of the topics I probably get asked about the most, which is of course LinkedIn. And my name is Simon Gray. Been planning this webinar for a little while now, and it's really great to see so many people on the line, giving up your time to come and learn something perhaps new about LinkedIn, and we're going to get going very, very shortly indeed. And also nice to see a combination of people I'm currently working with, current clients, and also some new people that may or may not have come across one of my webinars or any of my content before. So a very, very warm welcome to everybody. So just while people are logging in, what would be useful? This is always a tentative time for me, just to make sure the technology is working. So if you could find the question box on your control panel, and perhaps just type a quick message in there just to let me know you can hear me. Let me know where you're from in the world. I think this is a truly international event, looking at where some of the people have registered from, which is great. And let me know if you've got a specific question that you wanted to ask me. I'm going to deal with some questions at the end, possibly some questions as we go through. But yeah, just let me know. So people are starting to come in. Hi to Charlie. Hi to Chris. Hi to Graham, hi to Andrew, hi to Rick, hi to Elfie, hi to Diane, hi to Daniel. Wow, great stuff. Everybody's logged in, and more people are arriving now. So time short, so let's properly get started. And yeah, it looks to be a combination. US, Switzerland, I think there, France, lots of people. Brilliant, fantastic. Okay, so let's kick off. So for the next 45 minutes or so, I'm going to explain some of the LinkedIn strategies you can use to be successful in the executive job market, to find success in the executive job market. And as a former professional recruiter and now advisor to clients from across the world through Career Codex, what I've learned is that most people now know that they should probably have a LinkedIn profile, but many are still not quite sure why or how to use it properly. And that may be one of the reasons that you decided to join the webinar, to find out a little bit more about how to use it properly. And don't worry, we're going to get to that. So on the webinar, we're going to cover three things. First off, why LinkedIn is so important for successful executive job search. Secondly, how to create your profile properly. And essentially, this is about optimizing your profile, making your profile look nice and attractive to the target decision maker, and dressing what I refer to as your shop window. And the analogy here is that you dress your shop window. People walk past it, and they walk past it, and you want to entice them in to find out more about you and what you have to offer. And then thirdly, I'm going to talk about strategies to use the platform proactively. And proactively is the key word here, to get the attention of the decision makers you're trying to reach. So you have to know who you're trying to reach, and then it's about using the platform proactively to make sure that you're reaching those people. So there's lots to cover. Going to move quite fast. So please turn off all distractions, pay attention to the screen, and grab a notebook if you haven't already. But I will be getting a copy of the recording out to you a little bit later on, probably about an hour to 2 hours after the webinar ends. And by the end of the webinar, I promise you'll have some practical actions to take to improve your profile. And for those here at the end, I'll be communicating an offer to have me personally review your LinkedIn profile for you. So let's move on. And before we dive into some of the strategies for LinkedIn, I always think it's important to do a quick introduction. After all, if you've not heard from me before, why should you listen to me, and what gives me the authority to communicate my message? Well, very, very quickly, I trained as a chartered accountant and then fell into the recruitment industry, where I spent over a decade of my life, first as a consultant and then as the founder and owner of my own recruitment firm. And now as the founder of Career Codex, I coach executive clients from across the world to take proactive, that word again, proactive control of their executive job search to define, find, and secure the executive position they really want, not just the one they've seen advertised or had presented to them by an executive search firm. And I use LinkedIn every day in my business, and it's a really, really powerful tool that I wouldn't be without. If I lost my LinkedIn profile, that would cause me tremendous problems. It's really, really is a powerful tool. I'm going to show you how and why that is on this webinar. I'm the author of 3 books, including Super Secrets of Successful Executive Job Search that you can see on the screen to the right, which on more than one occasion, I'm very proud to say, has been the best-selling book in the executive job search space on Amazon and regularly receives 5-star reviews. And as we're discussing LinkedIn, if you're not connected with me already, you're very welcome to do so after the webinar. So please just make a note now of my username, which is Simon Gray, ACA. Okay, so now it's time to drive. And LinkedIn, much like the Ferrari you see on the screen, is a powerful tool when driven properly. Following LinkedIn's acquisition by Microsoft, it will become even more powerful in the coming months and years. And you're probably already noticing changes that are being pushed through all of the time, which if we have time, I'll be happy to take a couple of questions on and share more with you about that later. Now, to drive a Ferrari properly, I don't have one, but I'm imagining here, to drive a Ferrari properly and safely for that matter, there are a few things you need to know. And it's exactly the same on LinkedIn. And your LinkedIn strategy for successful executive job search, perhaps surprisingly, doesn't start with building your profile on the platform. Instead, it has to start offline by taking 3 steps back. So here, over to the left, environment. This is the 3rd step back. So process is where you find LinkedIn. This is the methodology I've devised, which is all about executive job search success. So taking 3 steps back to the left to environment. Driving a Ferrari, you need to know the terrain in advance. And in the executive job market, before you can create and optimize your LinkedIn profile, you need to understand the environment and how the executive job market really works. Next, psychology. Driving a Ferrari, you need to be in the right mindset. And to avoid driving off the road, you can't afford a lapse in concentration. Now, there may be quite literally bumps in the road, but you have to keep going. In the executive job market, where finding a new position could take 6 months or longer, developing the right psychology is critical to success. And also understanding the psychology of the decision makers that you're trying to reach is critical to success. So psychology has 2 elements. Then it's planning. Driving a Ferrari, or any car for that matter, you have to know where you're headed. Otherwise, getting to your destination is simply left to chance. And it means you need to set your sat nav. And in the executive job market, it's the same. You have to clearly define the position you want and put together a plan to find it. And when it comes to successful executive job search, focus always trumps flexibility. And then process. Sat behind the wheel of your Ferrari, only when you understand the environment, are in the right mindset, and you know where you're headed, is it time to set off. When it comes to successful executive job search, it's exactly the same. Environment, psychology, and planning combine to inform who you're trying to reach and what message you'll need to get their attention. This directs the executive job search process you'll need to run, of which LinkedIn is an integral part. So why is LinkedIn so important? Well, it's important because more and more people nowadays are spending an increasing amount of time doing online research. I research stuff before I buy stuff. We do this in our personal lives, and people do it in our professional lives now as well. And for example, as a professional recruiter for many years, I would receive CVs and resumes all the time, but would almost immediately cross-reference to LinkedIn, as the candidate's LinkedIn profile told me so much more and contained third-party verification or social proof, which I'll talk about later. Also, before LinkedIn, there was a gap between employers and executive job seekers. You can see that gap on the screen, and LinkedIn's filled that gap. Employers looking to hire into their senior team back in the day would need to engage the services of an executive search firm, or at the very least, take out an expensive advertisement in a news publication. But the environment has now changed. And through LinkedIn, employers now have the best database in the world at their fingertips and direct access to you. And it's the best database because you keep it up to speed. You have an incentive to keep your profile up to speed and accurate. And if you're not on LinkedIn or haven't optimized your profile properly, employers may not find you, and you could be missing out on a multitude of opportunities that are never advertised in the public domain or placed with executive search firms. LinkedIn gives you the keys to this place I call the hidden market. You may have heard this term before. And what's more, it's a two-way street. You don't need to wait anymore for an employer to approach you. With the right psychology, and having planned where you're headed, LinkedIn is a powerful tool that gives you an invaluable opportunity to build relationships with employers you'd like to work for. And that's relationships with employers you'd like to work for, whether they're advertising or not. Let's talk about some of the key principles, and then we will get into LinkedIn. I'll pull up my profile and show you how I use it. So let's first of all talk about some of the key principles, because we're setting the foundations for what you need to think about before you actually get live onto the platform. And to use LinkedIn as part of your executive job search strategy, there are a number of key principles I think you need to know. There are quite a few more than 5, but I've focused these on key 5 principles I wanted to communicate with you on this webinar. And the first one is focus. You have to clearly define the executive position you want, which informs who you're trying to reach and the message you'll need to communicate to get their attention. Patience. Building your personal brand online, which is what LinkedIn is all about, takes time. And it takes time, and you need to build connections. And I'll talk about connections in a moment, but these connections that you build need to be built one by one. There's no fast way to do that. It's one by one. There's some automation you can use, but essentially at the end of the day, it's a one by one process, and it has to be a personalized process. Next is consistency. Little and often is much better than infrequent bursts of activity on the platform. And it might be helpful to think of LinkedIn as a digital heartbeat. That's the way I think about it. So LinkedIn is a digital heartbeat of your online presence, and your heart should never, ever stop. Excuse me. Then engagement. Although LinkedIn is a digital environment, the rules of face-to-face engagement apply. Taking an interest in the other party first and personalizing your message to generate a two-way conversation is always better than one-way noise. And then finally, completeness. Much like Google, LinkedIn wants to serve up the best results to someone using its search functionality. Incomplete profiles don't cut it. And if you want to increase the probability of being found, LinkedIn's advice is to take advantage of all the bells and whistles they offer. And at a very basic level, this means your profile needs a photo, because LinkedIn gives you the option to upload one. And I was speaking in London a couple of weeks ago to a group of CFOs at a conference, and one of them asked me about whether they needed a LinkedIn photo. And I turned around to this chap and said, well, honestly, yes, you do. Because if it was me as a recruiter, or me now looking to do business with somebody, if you didn't have a profile photo, I would go to the next profile. So photo is absolutely something that you need. And there's quite a few other bits and pieces you need, which I'll come on to shortly. These principles combine into something I call the hire cycle, which is see me, like me, trust me, hire me. And if you think about how most people behave in the executive job market, it's a case of producing a CV or a resume, putting it out there, or putting out a LinkedIn profile, and communicating a message about needing a position, and hire me. So it's see me, hire me. But that just doesn't work anymore. See me, hire me just doesn't work anymore. And when I see people's profiles with the headline seeking opportunities, or currently seeking opportunities, then that's really not a good strategy for engagement. That's not a good strategy to position yourself properly online. Just had a message, a question come in. Phil says he keeps losing sound. Could be the internet connection. Not had that message from anyone else. So hopefully, probably what I recommend, Phil, perhaps logging out, logging back in. That might cure the problem. But hopefully everybody else is okay and can hear the sound. So let's get back to the hire cycle. First of all, see me. You have to be visible on the platform with a fully optimized and complete profile. Then increase your visibility through liking, commenting, and sharing, making sure that at all times you're cultivating a focused and consistent online message. Like me is through sharing curated and also content you create yourself. You do this, share curated content, created content, stuff you create yourself, and this develops your online brand. And having an opinion and sharing your knowledge advances relationships from just being seen to being liked. Trust me is the next stage. As people engage with your message on the platform, they'll begin to trust you. And in the executive job market, hiring decisions are never made in the absence of trust. and then hire me. Before a potential employer approaches you on the platform, it's very likely that they will have advanced through the hire cycle stages. And when they're ready to reach out, don't make them go searching for your contact information. Make sure your contact details are visible and that you're highly responsive to their approach. So see me, like me, trust me, hire me is a strategy you need to use online as part of your executive job search strategy. It's also a strategy for business. I just got off a call with a prospective client literally about 15 minutes ago, and this individual has been following a lot of my content for a number of years now, and the see me, like me, trust me, hire me methodology absolutely works. And now we're in talks about him coming into one of my private coaching programs or my online coaching program, and it's exactly the same in cultivating your online presence. Okay, building connections on LinkedIn is something I think most people know they need to do, and this really helps you to grow your reach and visibility, because the more people you have in your network, the more people you can see and the more people can see you. And quantity is important, and getting over the magic 500 number is key, because below 500 on LinkedIn, LinkedIn will show the exact number of connections you have. So if you've got 493 connections, LinkedIn will show that you've got 493 connections. But above 500, this is kind of the watershed. Above that, it will display 500 plus. And the upshot is that any serious user of the platform must have over 500 connections. Now, quality is also important. And when it comes to your executive job search, the more connections you have in your industry sector and target geography, the better. And as you can see on screen, there are 4 types of connections: first, second, third, and group connections. And your focus when it comes to executive job search should be moving second tier connections to first. Second tier connections kind of are on the fringes of your network. They're connected to one of your first tier connections. And certainly in building my business, this is where I focus my attention. Third tier connections are a little bit further afield. Group connections, I'm going to talk about a little bit later. They're a special type of connection where you don't actually need to be connected one-to-one, but there is a group connection, group visibility, where you can actually contact people in groups without being connected to them. Okay, so we've covered the principles, and I think that's important time spent for the first 15 minutes or so. And I'm now going to pull up my LinkedIn profile and show you some of the things you can do to create an attractive shop window. And in the email I sent out in advance of the webinar, as part of the registration, I think it was, I shared an article about how to write your LinkedIn headline. Just if you could let me know in the question box while I pull up my profile whether you saw this article, whether you read it, that would be really helpful. Did you read the article I sent out, how to write your LinkedIn headline? That would be important for me to know. Okay, Manisha says yes. Read it. Alfie says yes. Charlie says yes. Excellent. Okay. Chris said didn't see it today. Okay. What I'll do is I'll make sure that goes out in the communication that comes out once the webinar's over. But I get asked the question a lot, and this is, you can see my profile on the screen now. This is what we're talking about here. This is your LinkedIn headline. It used to be called a professional headline. Now they call it the headline. And this is a really important bit to get right. You have limited characters to get that right. And I put this piece of content together. It walks you through a step-by-step approach to craft your LinkedIn headline. So the LinkedIn headline here on the screen is important. And in addition to this, your photo and your banner is also important. And a lot of people, I see their LinkedIn profiles, they forget to do anything with this banner. And the banner is important because it's a visual representation of who you are and what you potentially do. So I clearly talk about the book up here. I have a client in the aerospace sector in America who has a picture of an engine up here. Worked with a client recently who was based in Washington, had a picture of Washington here. So providing it says something about where you're based, what it is you do, it's an important visual cue that the person should read on, look at your profile picture, and then read your professional headline. And I call these 3 pieces of information your invaluable real estate, because you've got to do all 3 of them. Because if you miss the opportunity to do that, you decrease the probability of people reading on down your profile. And what you're trying to do here is to entice somebody to read down your profile so they get to get to your experience, your skills and experience, which you have detailed a little bit further on. And in the article, that I sent out, and I'll get this out to you. I'll get this out to you shortly after the webinar. I state that your job on LinkedIn is to appeal to the minority you choose instead of the majority you have no control over, which means a focused message to a target audience. So when you're crafting your headline, you should never communicate your need for a job, and instead should communicate three things. And the three things you need to communicate here are work. So your job title, as employers will likely be searching on this when they search for keywords up here. The second thing you need to communicate is wow, a sense of what your value proposition is. And this shouldn't be a responsibility. Instead, here think achievement or solution. And then wonder. This is often the most difficult thing to come up with, but by creating some intrigue or curiosity, the reader of your profile is more likely to stick around and read on. And if I look at mine here, published author and former recruiter turned executive job search trainer, coach and cornerman, what I've done here is I kind of have my job title, executive job search trainer, coach. That's the work bit. The wow bit is, well, okay, published author. Yeah, there's the book up there to reference that. And that's often the first bit of engagement I have with prospective clients. The wonder bit, this bit, cornerman, I often get people asking me, what does this cornerman thing mean? I have a background in martial arts. If you read on, you discover why this cornerman word is used. And that's kind of the curiosity piece where people might just dive down here and read a little bit more about what that's all about. So getting these three bits of invaluable real estate, as I call them, right is important. The banner, the photo, and the professional headline. Next, it's on to the summary, and you'll see from the summary that it's like a mini headline. You can click here to expand it, and people ask me, well, what's the difference between the headline and the summary? Well, for one, you've got more text, but what's the difference between your summary and your experience a little bit further down the profile? Now, what a summary really is all about, in my opinion, is it's about you communicating your personality. Okay, your personality. So your personality, what you're passionate about, what makes you tick, include your contact details down here, set it out nicely as I've done with bullet points or visual cues to encourage people to read on, space it out with white space. But it's really communicating your passion, what makes you tick, what it is you're all about. When you get down to experience, it's a bit more factual about your achievements in those particular roles. And you also have a facility here. You'll notice I have a couple of articles that I've uploaded. There's one where I was quoted in the Wall Street Journal. Let me shut that down. One where I was quoted in the Financial Times. And this is all kind of social proof. So if you have articles you've been quoted in your industry space, if you've got something you've been working on that you think will be interesting to the reader of your profile, you have the opportunity to upload this onto your summary or indeed anywhere in your profile in some of your experience. And the way you do that, you click on the pencil icon here. You drop down here. And it says here upload, and there's various supported formats you can use. I'll just save that, but the thing I recommend is something called SlideShare, which is free. You can upload documents to SlideShare. If I click here, this is my career Codex SlideShare. I click on my uploads and you'll see the article that you see on my profile. I think it's somewhere down here. Yeah, you see this one. Actually, where is it? I think I'm pulling that through from a different SlideShare profile. But what you'll see here, if I hover over any of these things, I get a prompt that says add to my profile. It will add it to my profile, and I can move it to my summary or to my experience. Okay, I had a quick question. Let me just deal with a question. Okay, so Andrew says, any tips on the photo, black and white or color? To be honest, Andrew, it doesn't really matter. I personally like the black and white photo, hides some imperfections. Let's just say that, and it's kind of timeless, and I think it contrasts quite well with the colourful background that I have. But really, it doesn't matter. The important thing is it's a professional photo in business dress, and ideally with a neutral background. This is me in front of a wall, just to give it some context. And my wife is a semi-professional photographer, so I got her to do it. This is not the time really for the iPhone or although they have a pretty good camera now. It's a professional photo that you want. And Chris says, Chris, great question. Chris says, in terms of the job title on the headline, is it your current job title or the one you are seeking? Okay, so there's likely to be some connection, Chris, between your current job title and the one you're seeking, unless you're completely changing sector to do something completely different. You've got to get in the mindset, this is back to psychology, get in the mindset of what somebody would be searching on to find somebody for the position you are seeking. So it needs to be where you're headed, not where you currently are. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. So if we continue down the profile, let me just minimize my my summary. What you'll notice here is articles and activity. Okay, articles, activity. I'm going to come back to this shortly because this is about using the platform proactively. But what you should notice here is that LinkedIn puts this opportunity very close to the top of your profile. And that's LinkedIn basically telling you that it's important. And it's amazing how many profiles I looked at today in preparation for this webinar where nobody's written an article and nobody's communicated anything in terms of their posts and activity. The other thing to note here as well, just to cover this off, I've got the 500 plus. You can get a clue as to how many connections people have down here. Number of followers gives you a clue. Followers are slightly different. Somebody can follow you without connecting to you. So I think I've got about 9,500 connections now. So if you do connect to me, if you're not connected to me already, you'll instantly, once I accept that and send me a message to let me know you've been on the webinar, you'll have about 9,500 second tier connections. And as I've said already, second tier connections is where you need to play the game on LinkedIn. We're then down to experience. These are your jobs that you've held. And in here, it's not all about responsibilities. What it really should be is not a list of responsibilities, but more about thinking about your achievements, your value proposition, where you've added value in the organizations that you've worked for. And then further down, again, I've got some more media in here. Further down, it's social proof. Yeah, it's social proof. And social proof on LinkedIn really has two elements. And this is one of the ways that LinkedIn is much more powerful than a CV or resume. I'm asked this quite often. What's the difference between a CV and resume and LinkedIn? Well, on a CV and resume, you don't have the opportunity for this. You don't have this real-time social proof that's living and breathing on the internet. And there are two elements of social proof. And social proof, for those of you who've not heard that term before, basically what it means is if I tell you I'm good at something, you may or may not believe me. But if somebody else tells you that I'm good at something and they communicate it formally, as they can do on LinkedIn, you're probably more likely to believe it because, there's somebody else saying it, not me. And this is what a lot of the social media profiles are built on now, social proof. And this terminology is becoming far more common. So two things, skills and endorsements. Now you can have 50 skills. 3 of them are going to be featured. They're going to sit here, and 47 of them are going to be hidden. I can show you what these skills are. They're down there. And these are the things that I want people to endorse me for. These are the things I want people to land on my profile and say, yeah, do you know what? Simon knows what he's talking about when it comes to executive search, career counseling, executive coaching. And I put my 3 featured ones at the top. Now, if you're coming to my profile and you're coming to my profile, in fact, let me show you here. Let me show you on Erica's. Erica's somebody I worked with a little while back. Let me go to Erica's profile. So if I land on Erica's profile, and I was thinking of talking to Erica about a position, and I wanted to know whether she's got experience in talent management. Well, first clue is that the number is high. That means she's been endorsed 90 times. But what's more important is that I'm told that Nikki Hill is endorsing Erica for this. And Nikki Hill is highly skilled at this. Okay. I'm also told that Yasmin Holmes has endorsed Erica, and I'm connected to Yasmin Holmes. So it's people I know and well-respected, highly skilled people at this are telling me that Erica is good at this. So this was an update that LinkedIn made recently. Instead of just the number, what you get now is more social proof based on the quality and experience of the people that are endorsing. It's people known to me that I will see, and people highly skilled that I will see. The other thing down here, recommendations. Let's jump back to my profile. So recommendations are important. Normally an employer would have to wait to the offer stage and make an offer subject to references before they got references. But of course, with recommendations, there is a visual representation that employers can get their hands on before making a decision, and but making a decision to meet you, never mind hire you. So it's important to make sure that you build out your recommendations and also to make sure you've got the right skills that you want to be endorsed for, and your featured 3 skills as being most important to your profile online. Okay, we're okay for time. So I'm going to show you a couple of other things that people don't tend to know. It's not as obvious on LinkedIn, but they're 2 important things that if you want to create a shop window that's going to be visible, I would suggest that you have a look at. And the first one is something called Open Profile. Anyone heard of Open Profile? Just let me know in the question box, please, if you would, yes or no. Heard of Open Profile? A few of my clients will have heard of it, but anyone else heard of Open Profile? Okay, about a 50-50 split. Okay, open profile is important. Now, the first thing to say about open profile, I should say, is if you have a premium account, you get access to it. If you don't get access to it. So you've got to have a premium account. And if you have a premium account, denoted by this is basically an account you pay for. You'll see I have Sales Navigator up here. I'll talk a bit more about premium accounts if we have time and take any questions on that at the end. But are quite good reasons to have a premium account now, one of which is Open Profile. What that means is you can set, if you click in here, you can set this thing called Open Profile and you switch this to on. And what this says is this premium feature allows anyone on LinkedIn to contact you directly for free, even if they are not connected to you. So the important thing about Open Profile is you're saying, do you know what? I'm open for people to contact me. So if an employer is looking at your profile, you want to make it easy for them to contact you, particularly if they're not connected to you. Now, if they have a premium account, they could use something called InMail to reach out to you. They could go to your, try and find your details over here. That may or may not show all of your information if they're not a first-tier connection. And then they might have to send you an email. They might have to pay for that email. But Open Profile allows them to click on the box that you would see here if there was somebody else, and click to send you a message that will arrive in your inbox and your LinkedIn inbox as a free message. So Open Profile is important. So thinking about whether you need a premium account or not, I used to say you didn't, but let's just cover that off now. Open Profile is one of the reasons that you would have a premium profile. The other reasons are that you can see who's viewed your profile. It's not limited. And probably the biggest reason that people don't always appreciate is that if you have not really used LinkedIn before, but start to do a lot of activity on LinkedIn in terms of making connections with people, which you absolutely should do, at some point LinkedIn is probably going to stop you and say that's unusual activity. If you've got a paid for account, carry on, happy days. You can do whatever it is you want to, because LinkedIn has a way of looking at a profile and saying, well, this person, they made 1 connection last month. Now they're making 3 a day. That's unusual activity. We want to stall them doing that, and we want to base what we allow them to do based on previous activity. So it takes time. There is also some automation that you can use with premium accounts, something called Linked Helper. I'm not going to talk about that on this webinar. It's quite a sophisticated piece of kit that a lot of my private clients have used to really increase their connectivity exponentially. But there's more about that in something called Executive Edge Online, which I'm going to talk about towards the end of this webinar. Then the other thing to think about the other thing people have not always heard of is something called career interests. Has anyone heard of career interests at all? Anyone heard of it? Career interest? Just let me know yes or no. Anyone heard? Most people are saying, a couple of people are saying yes, but most people are saying no. Okay, let me show you career interests. So, and this you can have on a free account, it's no problem at all. If you go under jobs up here and you click here, career interests, and you can turn this thing to on. Okay, what it says, let recruiters know you're open. So this basically allows you to communicate a message to executive recruiters who use LinkedIn all the time. I know, because I used to be one. You can add the job titles you're considering, the locations you'll work in, type of work you're looking for. You can even add size of company preferences. And this isn't publicly visible, although LinkedIn has a privacy statement here that you should read. It says it can't guarantee complete privacy. But what that means is if executive recruiters are using a premium service provided by LinkedIn, which many of them are, they will get notified of your career interests, and it can help them to find you more easily. it can help them to get a better understanding of who you are and what you're looking for. Particularly if you focus this message, and it's all about focus, not flexibility. It just increases your visibility with executive recruiters. And executive recruiters are one of the ways you can find your next executive position. I advocate direct to employer, leveraging the power of something called market makers, as equally as important as executive recruiters. But that's there for you to use as well. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off because I'm not actually looking for a position. I'm going to come back in here, back into my profile, and I'm just going to dive over to the to this screen just to minimize that, because we're going to move on now. So hopefully giving you a few tips and tricks in terms of creating your shop window. And your shop window is about attracting people in so they view what you've put on there, view your content, you develop this see me, like me, trust me kind of conveyor belt, and they're more likely to stick around and to reach out to you ahead of somebody else. You're trying to make your profile sticky, very much like a website. So when somebody lands on it, they don't bounce off it. Yeah, they stay there for a while to get to know you. The next element of LinkedIn is using LinkedIn as a proactive engagement tool. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're active in the executive job market, you no longer have to wait for an executive position to be advertised to approach an employee. In fact, the best time to be in touch with an organization is before they've publicly advertised a position or engaged the services of an executive search firm. And I call this getting ahead of the market. And I can tell you employers are now going to LinkedIn directly to find talent for their organizations, often before advertising positions online or placing them with executive search firms. And if you're not on LinkedIn proactively, that word again, and are not capitalizing on the opportunity to communicate your skills, experience, and personality, which combine to form your personal brand, you could be missing out on a multitude of opportunities that exist before ever being placed in the public domain. In this place I call the hidden markets. But if you embrace LinkedIn, executive career opportunities are very likely to find you when you least expect it. So that's about having a shop window, then embracing LinkedIn proactively. Now, while many have a LinkedIn profile, very few use it proactively. And while having an attractive shop window is important, it's really like driving that Ferrari again, but in first gear, unless you use the platform as a proactive engagement tool. And there are a multitude of ways to climb up the gears in that Ferrari to make your LinkedIn profile work harder for you by using it proactively. And I'm going to share a few of these with you now. So to make that easy, what I'm going to do is pull my LinkedIn profile up again, and we'll cover off using LinkedIn as a proactive engagement tool. Let's just see if there's any questions come in. Okay, I think there's one here. Okay, this is a good question actually. Ehor says, prior to LinkedIn being acquired by Microsoft, I used to get more bites from recruiters and HR. Why do I not get as much now? Great question. And the question is that Microsoft has come in, and often with a change of ownership, there's a change of focus. And now really it's about pay to play. Okay, so one of the reasons could be if you don't have a premium profile. Because if I was to post a piece of content, prior to Microsoft acquiring LinkedIn, it would get a lot more visibility. It would be communicated a lot further than now. Now a premium profile is more important. So I don't know whether you have a premium profile. That could be one of the things. What I'm going to show you now is how you use the platform proactively. So even if they don't find you, you can go and find them and raise your prominence in their mind as to somebody that they should be taking seriously when it comes to recruiting and hiring into their organizations. Okay, so let's talk about proactive engagement on the platform. And what I want to do is to come back to this articles and activity. And if I click in here, what you'll see is there are articles and there are posts. These used to be called status updates posts. Articles used to be called published posts. And then there's all the activity combined. And you see I fill my feed with both. So let's talk about posts first off. And these are a great way to communicate a consistent message to your connections. There I'm doing that on screen with a video. Sharing relevant content via posts will gain you attention. And this can be curated content, which is content that you found online, you haven't created. You're taking somebody else's content by adding your opinion in the narrative up here, and then sharing it with your connections. Really, really quick and easy to do. And I've been doing this to promote the webinar. You'll see this down here somewhere. There we go. I've been doing this to promote the webinar, and I keep this feed topped up. I use some automation tools, not this one down here, but another one that keeps my feed consistently topped up, which keeps me top of mind, because you only have a shelf life in your feed, and if somebody doesn't happen to be on the platform looking at their feed as one of your first tier connections, then it's very likely that your content can be pushed further down. So you have to post on a regular basis. Articles are really important. Really, really important. And these are long form contents. Okay, it's original content you create. This is one I created last week on interviews. It's basically it's kind of a blog post, and these really have attention grabbing value because you've created them. You communicate your opinion, but of course they take longer to produce. And when you create your long form content, your articles, you've got to think about the problems or opportunities in your sector and communicate your knowledge and experience in a helpful, interesting, and engaging way. So you're very focused about what it is you want. Then you think about the problems and opportunities that people are facing in your sector, the decision maker you're trying to reach, and you communicate to them in the form of educational content and opinion piece content. Now, your connections will see your article in their feed, okay, and they'll also see it on your profile when they land. So if they land on your profile and you've got a good headline, they come down here. First thing you're going to see is your article. Now, if this title speaks into their problems or challenges, then they're very likely to read that, and that helps you to build likability and trustability. And at the end of your article, you can put a call to action that says, "This is how you get in touch with me." Really, really powerful, really powerful stuff. And I encourage all of my clients, my private clients, my online clients, to publish an article on LinkedIn. And I know in the beginning it can be very, very challenging for them. There's a few on tonight who will probably agree with me, because it puts you out there and people have the opportunity to publicly comment on what you've written. But they also have the opportunity, and this is the important bit, to like and share what you've written, which is how your message spreads wider than your first tier connections to increase your reach and visibility. So if one of my first tier connections shares this article, yeah, that means that their first tier connections can see it, and their first tier connections may be my second tier connection. So it increases my reach and visibility. And this article I wrote recently, 192 views, 9 likes, not a huge amount of shares. The one I wrote a little bit further back, the one prior to that did very well indeed. I think that one was about personal branding, which of course is a very hot topic. If you hit the topic that's important to your target decision makers in the organizations you would like to be employed by, then you're absolutely onto a winner. So if you do only one thing as a result of this webinar, I would encourage you to write your first article and get it published. Never be perfect, don't worry, but just get it published. Get out of your comfort zone and get it published, because it's a great way to communicate your message, and it's a way that many people fail to take advantage of, and you might just be pleasantly surprised by the results. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about LinkedIn groups. Okay, and groups exist up here now. They've moved in the recent past. So the way I find my groups, I go under work, and I go into groups here. How many of you use LinkedIn groups? How many of you use LinkedIn groups on on LinkedIn? Just let me know, yes or no, if you've used LinkedIn groups. And there's a few questions come in, which I will come back to. Okay, so Tony says yes. Quite a few people say yes. Okay, good. You're on the right track, because groups, for me, is where the real power of LinkedIn lies, because groups are a collection of individuals united by a common interest, profession, cause, or geography. And if you're looking for an executive opportunity in a specific sector, then find a group on LinkedIn where people in a particular profession, industry, sector, or geography congregates. So, if I go into this group, I'm a member of this group. In this group, there are 367,000 members in this group. Collection of people who are all in the finance space. They'll be working in different sectors, but they're in the finance space. So if I'm a CFO looking to move positions, this is probably a group I should be involved in and probably should be engaging in. And the advice that I have in terms of groups is that you first get into the group and you listen. You look at what people are posting. What are they talking about? What are the hot topics of conversation. So you listen first, same as if you went to a face-to-face networking event. You go in, take the temperature of the room, listen to what people are talking about, and gradually join into the conversation. And the way you can join into the conversation in LinkedIn groups is you can like and you can comment on posts. And if I comment on Donald's post, he's going to know that I've done that. If I like his post, he's going to know that I've done that. And that's an important strategy to gain likability and visibility on the platform. Then, of course, you can take your content, if it would speak to people in this group, the content you've created, the published post you've created, here, you can copy the URL and you can share it in relevant groups simply by putting a message and posting. In fact, that's the subject line. We won't put it there. I'm posting it here. Okay, you can do that, and it will even pull through imagery of what that's all about. And you ask people for their comments, their feedback, and their thoughts. And if you think of LinkedIn as the ocean, then groups are really kind of a collection of fish of the same type. Maybe a bad analogy, but that's really what it's all about, which increases the probability of you starting a conversation with someone that will open the door to the executive opportunity you want. And I used to post my positions in groups of people, groups where I knew candidates with certain skills and experience would be based. And that's how I found a lot of my candidates. And you had to be in the group to be found by me. But for me, fishing in the big LinkedIn pond, that was a low probability strategy. If I was looking for a CFO, I'm going to be all over a group like this. So it's employers and recruiters and introducers, which are people I call market makers, that you really want to be getting to grips with and getting in front of in groups. And an added bonus in groups, which I'm not sure if everyone knows, I talked about this a little bit at the start. You don't need to be connected to somebody to send them a message. There is a special kind of group connection. What that means is I can message anybody in this group directly. Okay, anybody in this group, simply by doing that. Okay, don't have to be connected. Don't have to be a first tier connection. Let's have a look. Yeah, I'm a second tier connection to Christian, the example I've just given you. Don't have to be a first tier connection. Special type of connection groups, and exponentially increases your reach and visibility if you join the right groups where your target decision maker is likely to be based. Now, we had a few questions come in on the last topic I was discussing, which was the post. I'm going to come back to those in a moment. There's a few more questions come in. I will stay on the line and deal with all of those questions. But what I'm going to do now is jump back to the slides. Let's do that now. Okay, let's jump back to the slides. Okay, and I'm going to take these questions in a moment, deal with these other questions. So have a think about any questions you want to ask, and please type those in the question box now. But I mentioned at the start, I think I probably mentioned it in the email communication, that for those of you on the webinar, I have an exclusive opportunity that I would like to share with you. And on this webinar, you'll appreciate time is short. We've been running for 50 minutes already. We've only really managed to scratch the surface of what it really takes to find success in the executive job market, and specifically to create your shop window on LinkedIn and use the platform proactively. And if you found this webinar useful, you're not one of my current clients on the line, then you might be interested in Executive Edge Online. And Executive Edge Online consolidates my knowledge and experience from the recruitment sector, and also working with executive clients from across the world to put them in proactive control of their executive job search and to fast track their results. Based on real life experience, and is the proven system for success, environment, psychology, planning, and process I talked about at the start of the webinar. So what's Executive Edge Online? Well, basically, it's an online program that comprises over 150 videos, downloads, exercises, and an archive that's accessible 24/7. Which means that you have this complete system at your fingertips, a step-by-step approach, which gives you access to the hidden market, whatever your profession or industry sector. And you have practical advice that's been tried and tested in real-life situations. You can access it wherever you want. You can jump around. If you have an interview next week, you can go to the interview section and you'll get some really different advice as to how to approach interviews. But my recommendation is you start at the start and you complete all of the modules in the program, because it's a system for success. It's not about one individual component. It is a system for success. And the content is continually being updated and added to by me. LinkedIn is constantly changing. We all know that. And there are over 20 videos in there that go into much more detail than we've had time for on the webinar on how to create your shop window and use the platform proactively. In addition to the content, you're going to be invited to a fortnightly group coaching call if you enroll, which means that as you go through the content, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions specific to your situation. As you take the knowledge and apply it practically, you're going to have questions that you can discuss with me on the live session. You'll receive ongoing mentoring and invaluable feedback from me and other members of the group. And I'll also share with you on these fortnightly group coaching calls, which I run through GoToWebinar, the latest thinking and advice and some of the stuff that my private clients are doing to make things work for them. Some of the principles that they're adopting and how they're finding success. You'll get this ongoing support to implement your strategy. And if you can't make a session live, you can still ask questions in advance, and a recording is always made available in the platform for you afterwards. And then there's a private LinkedIn group. Not everybody joins the group. Some people want to maintain complete confidentiality, and everything I talk about when I'm talking about real life examples of situations, I never ever mention anybody's name. It's always 100% confidential, but I share principles and share feedback as to what's working particularly well out there in the field of executive job search. So 24/7 content, fortnightly group coaching calls, private LinkedIn group. This gives you reinforcement in between the fortnightly group coaching calls. In the LinkedIn group, I post content that I don't always publicly post. And there are people going through the program in that group currently. And there's also Executive Edge alumni who've been through the program and found success using it. Okay, so as a special thank you for attending this webinar, I'd like now to give you an exclusive opportunity that is open for about the next 37 minutes. And let me just got a little timer over here. Let me just pop that across. Let me just refresh the URL, and hopefully that will work. Yeah, for the next 38 minutes, this is an opportunity to enroll in Executive Edge Online. And Executive Edge Online runs on a monthly subscription, which you can cancel at any time. And if you enroll in Executive Edge Online in the next 38 minutes, you'll receive a 50% discount on your first month subscription. And I'll also have another bonus for you. I'll get across a personalized review of your LinkedIn profile to you ahead of the weekend. So basically what I'll do, we'll need to be connected, so you need to connect to me on LinkedIn. I'll go into your LinkedIn profile, I'll record a quick video, URL only for you, only you will see it, and I'll give you some tips and advice specific to your LinkedIn profile as to where I think you can make improvements. If it's relevant, I'll share some of the stuff that I've not had a chance to talk about tonight on the webinar that could be useful to help you build your profile. So to get access to this, I've sent you an email. That email fired probably about 5 minutes ago. This has got an exclusive link in it to join Executive Edge Online at the discounted rate in month one. So month one, it's 50%. The month two onwards, remember you can cancel at any time. It's £99. That's UK sterling, £99 per month, which gives you access to all of the content, the fortnightly group coaching calls, and the LinkedIn group. And if you're signed up in the next 36 minutes, you get the bonus of 50% off in the first month, and also a personalized LinkedIn review that I'll get to you ahead of the weekend. So to get started, please check your email now, as this offer is only available for the next, what are we talking now, 36 minutes. And if you can't see the email, please just check your spam folder just in case. And sometimes people say to me, well, why do you put a time limit on this offer? What I'm trying to do here is to encourage you that if you're ready to take action, that now is the time to take action. Now is always the time to take action, is my belief. And I think it's very easy to come on a webinar. We then go back to I've done this before. You go back to your day job, or what you're doing that evening, and that prompt just to take action there and then disappears. And it becomes easy not to take the action that, if it's right to your situation now, it's probably action you should be taking. So please have a check of that email. As they say, the clock is ticking. So now I'm going to take some questions, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back to the questions people asked earlier. I'm going to dig into those. But if you have any questions on LinkedIn, on executive job search, then now is absolutely the time to ask those questions. Okay, so let me jump into those. Okay, so Antonio has said, how long does it last your posts on? How long do your posts last on LinkedIn? Less than a month, less than 1 month, or forever? Okay, your posts will be there forever. Okay, but they have a life. They kind of have a lifetime, because if you're talking about your posts, the older they get, the further they get pushed down in your feed, because you have this feed on LinkedIn. Your articles, yeah, they will last forever as well, but your more recent article is more visible. One of the things I mentioned earlier is about consistency on the platform as one of the principles. So you should be sharing posts and sharing articles on a consistent basis. That is your digital heartbeat on the platform, but they will stay. If you publish them, they will stay there, and what's more, they'll be searchable. So that's important. Okay, and Tony says, are there any negative aspects to be wary of when writing articles? Not really, Tony. I think if you're writing an article in good faith where you express an opinion on your sector, something you know about, and you make it clear that it is your opinion, then that's absolutely fine. You've got to think about your destination that I talked about earlier. Who are you trying to reach? What type of organization are you trying to reach? What's going to be important to the decision makers in those organizations? Make your content very, very specific, that addresses a problem, a challenge, or speaks into an opportunity, and share your experience. If you're sharing your experience as if you were sat across a room from an individual, and you communicate some opinion, then there's no problem with that at all. And if you want some ideas as to how to structure it, I talk about this in Executive Edge Online, how to structure a published post, how to structure communication with a decision maker, then please take a look at some of my posts, which will give you an idea as to how to do that. Meg says, I'm glad you've said this, Meg. I agree. Very scary publishing your first article. I think I ran to hide on my first share, worried about what people would say, but I did it. Good for you. Good for you, Meg. You absolutely should do it. Those who do get, and those who don't tend not to get. And we live more and more in an age of personal branding, of the people that get on are the people that put themselves out there. I used to be terrified of public speaking, and until about 2 or 3 years ago, and I got some training, got some help, and did this. If you decide, Meg, to enroll in Executive Edge Online, you'll get all the support you need to put out there published posts, to do all the other stuff that I talk about in the program, to put yourself in front of decision makers. Okay, Mike says, I heard rumors that LinkedIn is looking to change groups radically. Do you know anything about this? Yes, I do. I speak to LinkedIn directly. So I have a direct line into them. I managed to secure that over the years. I'm a big user of LinkedIn, and they are working on LinkedIn groups at the moment. Exactly what they're going to do, I'm not sure. I think they will maintain groups. I think groups are important, and what LinkedIn tends to be doing, they've done this with something called active status recently, which really mirrors Facebook Messenger. They tend to be following the Facebook model, and we all know probably how important groups are on Facebook. So I think we can see more from groups. They've kind of been retired a little bit, hidden behind that work drop-down menu. I think we can see more prominence from groups moving forwards, and a lot of other exciting stuff now that LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft. Okay, great questions. Thank you. Great comments. Phil says, published my first post the other week to get going. Great to see people viewing, however small. That's it, Phil. The more you post, the more connections you have, the more people will consume your content. See me, like me, trust me, hire me. And you don't even need to be active in the executive job market. If you do this consistently, even when you're not looking, then you tend to attract opportunities. And one of the mistakes executives make is they have this stop-start approach. Okay, stop-start approach. Let me refresh this clock. And you should never be stopping doing your stuff on LinkedIn. What you should be doing is communicating your thoughts, your experience all of the time. You'll then attract opportunities that you may not otherwise have heard about. Okay, Antonio says, should you focus your likes for consistency in specific areas, industries that you're looking for, or can you distribute likes to other areas as well? If you see something on LinkedIn, Antonio, that you like, then like it. It's a genuine like. But in terms of raising your profile with target decision makers, then you should be liking in your industry sector and liking the content of decision makers in that sector. I talk about this. This is a strategy I talk about specifically called the shark attack strategy. Not a great title, but now I've told you it, you'll remember it. If you're in a boat bobbing around on the sea, what does a shark do? It bumps the bottom of the boat to let you know it's there. That's what a like is. That's what a like is on LinkedIn. You're bumping somebody's profile to let them know you're there and paying attention. Meg says, great webinar, Simon. Thank you. Thank you, Meg, for joining. Thanks for connecting to me earlier on LinkedIn as well. Chris says, thanks. I have to drop off now. Thank you, Chris. Gulam says, thank you for the webinar. A couple of useful tips. You mentioned how important original articles were, but do you get greater quantitative response? In terms of quantitative response, I guess you're talking about views. Yes, you do, in my experience, because it's sat very prominently and very visually with an image on your profile. What I would encourage you to do, and everybody to do, is to take the URL from your post and share that in your feed. So share that in your posts. So you have your article URL. You take that from time to time to keep it fresh, front of house. You share it in your post, and that just keeps it live. Okay. So Ihor says, what is the executive edge price in the US? So depending on the exchange rate, if you're based in the US, Ihor, you're probably quite lucky because our currency is not particularly strong at the moment. So I imagine you're probably around about the $70, $75 mark, maybe $80 mark. Not quite sure. I would jump online, pop £99 UK into a currency converter and see what pops out. It will be exchanged from your bank account at the current exchange rate. Okay. Phil says, how can you get the homepage into date order? Mine appears to be all over the place and is difficult to follow. So what you can do in the edit function over here is you can, let me go back to my profile. Now, they were messing around with this functionality a little while back, so possibly it's still here. But what you can do is you can drag and drop here. See this here? You can drag pieces of content and drop pieces of content. I'm not going to do that because it messes up the profile, but that's what you're looking for to be able to do that. Antonio says, should a senior executive profile be more generic, high level, or more detailed of achievements? And thank you, Antonio. You sent me those questions across, and I'm going to get to those, but you're asking them now live, which is even better. I would say that your profile, in terms of your experience, should talk about achievements. Okay, it's not all the bells and whistles, not all the responsibilities that you've had. What somebody is looking to get from you as a senior executive is what value you added in your experience. So it's real high level stuff, real game changing stuff. And I always describe responsibilities is what you do on a day-to-day basis, whereas achievements it's that thing that you do once every couple of years. You know, if you want a contract for the organization that added X amount to the bottom line, that's kind of an achievement. That's a big deal. That's what you should be focusing on. Antonio says, I wrote an article and I had more than 3,000 views, but no views from Asia. I was very surprised. Does LinkedIn cover all the world? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. But of course, in Asia, while a lot of people over there will be bilingual, will be speaking English if your profile is in English, of course there is there's a possibility that you're not going to get as much visibility because it's a different language over there. You can actually add another language to your profile here if you follow these steps. So yeah, LinkedIn does cover the world, but you're always going to get more visibility in the countries of the language your profile relates to. Kish says, I'm just running out. If some of you need to go now, I appreciate we're slightly over time. I'm going to run over and deal with these questions. Kish says, thank you. Would like to follow up with a conversation. Have sent connect invite. Thanks. Okay, so send me a personal message, Kish, and we can have a conversation. Tony says, thank you. Very useful. Simon leaving now. Gulam says, okay, thanks, Simon. Mike says £99 is about $125. Thanks, Mike. I've just realised I got the currency the wrong way around. Yes, of course, it's more dollars per pound. So thanks for clarifying that, Mike. So if you sign up to Executive Edge Online in the next 30 minutes or 25 minutes now, and you're signing up from a country where you pay in dollars, then it's going to be about $125. Of course, it's going to be half that for your first month if you're in the program in the next 25 minutes. Now, Antonio had sent me a couple of other questions that I'm going to deal with now. Hopefully you're still on the line to hear these. If not, it'll be out in the recording. And this was a great question. So Antonio said, in between, if I'm in between jobs or unemployed, is it better to say that you're currently a consultant of XYZ Limited or XYZ Company or whatever else, or just don't say anything, even if you're unemployed for more than a year? I would steer clear of doing that. I would be very transparent with your profile. I do see people's profiles where they finished their last permanent piece of employment. They've then have this consultant thing where they're kind of in between. It causes confusion. People aren't sure whether you're looking for a position or you are in business for yourself. So what I say to people in the executive job market, to my private clients, I've had people that have come to me that have been a year and a half not in work. It doesn't really matter. It's how you choose to communicate that message. And what I always say to people is it's probably more of a big deal to you as the individual than it is to an employer. And remember, in the executive job market, it can take 6 months, 9 months, even 12 months sometimes to find that next position. This is high stakes. This is high stakes poker, if you like. So it's not generally a problem. This comes back to psychology, which I talked about earlier. What you believe is how you think and how you act. If you believe that a year is too long out of work, you're going to think it's going to impact on the action you're prepared to take. It's not generally an issue, and I'll show you in the Executive Edge Online exactly how to position yourself, so that kind of thing doesn't matter at all. But great question. So no, don't set yourself up as a consultant unless you are going into business as a consultant. Instead, just end your last period of employment when it ended. And then the last question I think we will have time for now, another question from Antonio is, what if my CV is not totally aligned with my LinkedIn profile? Well, it doesn't have to be. They're two different documents. The date should mirror one another. Yeah, the date should mirror one another, but they are two different documents. So it doesn't matter at all. LinkedIn offers you a lot more things that you can do to raise your profile, communicate your message. You can have different achievements on your CV, different achievements on your LinkedIn profile. It really depends on who you're trying to reach. And what I used to say to my candidates when I was in the recruitment space, and still say to my clients now, is really you should have a specific CV for every position you're going for, whether that's a position you see advertised or whether that's a position you're looking to uncover or create in the hidden market. So they can be different, but I would say to you that if you have a really strong achievement, then it probably should be on your CV and your LinkedIn profile. Okay, so Ihor says, what if you're consulting but want to get back into a corporation? That's fine. If you are genuinely consulting now, Ihor, you need that on your profile. And you will have achievements, no doubt, working with organizations, how you've helped those organizations, and you need to communicate those as achievements because that is stuff that you're doing. What Antonio, I think, was referring to is some people set up a job title as consultant when really they're not consulting. They're just looking for their next position, and that's a different thing altogether. And Elfie says, thanks, Simon, for the webinar. I am still working on my post. Good, making it better, but we'll definitely be posting it. If you have more tips and tricks after reviewing my profile, please let me know during our next call. Many thanks. I have to go now. Wish you a great evening, and to you, Elfie, as well. Antonio says, very clear, Simon. Thank you, Antonio. Thank you for sending the questions across to me in advance. Okay, we are out of time. Some fantastic questions. I always like to get through the questions if I can, and I've done that slightly over time. Let me just jump into here. I have to refresh this. It's just the browser. So if you'd like to join Executive Edge Online and take advantage of the 50% off in month one and the personalized LinkedIn review, you have 21 minutes, 20 seconds to do that. I'd like to say a big thank you to all of you for attending the webinar. I know some people have had to leave now. It's been a real pleasure to share my message and knowledge with you. And if relevant to your situation, as I say, I hope to see you in Executive Edge Online and on the next group coaching call. So thank you for joining me. Until next time, take care, and I hope to have the opportunity to speak to you again very, very, very soon.